But again, my name is Jeff Binder. I'm the interim pastor here. It's my privilege to welcome you all. I'm a short timer myself. This church is actually going to be calling a new pastor in the near future. Really quickly, just want to give you all a quick orientation of the space. This is our fellowship hall. Upstairs is the rest of our educational building, and you all are aware of our sanctuary space approximate to down the hall here. I'm assuming many of you all have your own faith communities, but if you don't, you're certainly welcome here anytime. We worship here on Sundays at 11 a.m., and this is a place for all people to come together in the spirit of unity and love. And so I just want to offer that invitation as well. If you all would like to help out, that's a donation table in the rear of the room where the Americana Thrift Shop receives donations from the community. That goes towards our mission efforts with the thrift shop ministry. And maybe if you're really good to Gordon here, he'll be able to fix you up something in the kitchen. So again, I just wanted to say welcome on behalf of Old Stone Presbyterian Church. It's my pleasure to have you all here. Old Stone really strives to be a place where the entire community can gather together. So thank you again for being here.
We appreciate Jeff. He's done a great job getting us this space. All right, so Frank, you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, let me start by saying my notebook will always be open at any meeting if any member or anybody would like to look at it. Everything is in here. I like transparency. I like everyone knowing where the money is going. So this will always be open at any time. Ad sales. We had $4,250. We do have 150 outstanding. We sold 104 tickets at $5,200. 4 tickets were reserved and not picked up, so we're short that 200. Our 50-50 received $190. Actually, to us, it was $380 in total. I returned $100 cash that was given to Mr. Tuckweller for change. Outstanding bills are Barbara Tuckweller, $21.18, Greenbrier Printing, $510.13, and I paid the elks yesterday. So our expenditures for the dinner was $4,468.81. We actually netted, after the elks, Barbara, and Greenbrier Printing, we netted $5,127.32.
Yay! In a non-election year. That's a great number.
We had 6 people pay dues this past month since our last meeting. We had 1 family and 5 singles. And then for the month of April, we deposited now I still have some deposits, so don't freak out. We deposited $7,690. And that's where I'm at.
That's pretty exciting. So thank you, Allie. We appreciate that.
We did get asked up to tell you about the lawsuit that was settled with the Supreme Court.
That's a good point, yeah.
Well, while Melody Potter was still chairman or chairwoman, she fired Rob Cornelius, who was the Wood County elected chairman, and because he had made some uncomplimentary remarks about the state organization, and she just summarily fired him. And Rob took umbrage at that, so he hired himself a lawyer. He went to court, and eventually ended up in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled that a political organization cannot fire a duly elected member. They can resign, but what that means is that the state bylaws and all the county bylaws are going to have to be stricken out on the business on how you can remove members, because you cannot remove members who have been duly elected. And it's been, the Supreme Court is the final word in West Virginia, so that's where it stands.
That includes the executive committee also.
They're elected.
Yes, I
That-
believe that.
That's the only elected organization is the executive committee. You can resign, but they can't kick you out.
You can do it.
Okay.
Todd, you had a question?
Just real briefly, just a statement. I was unable to attend. Unlike those legislators up in Washington, D.C., we're just part-time guys. We're part-time legislators. We don't do it full-time. We're part-time legislators who have full-time jobs. And I had an event that was scheduled last year through the public school system for a military ball for our JRTC cadets. And I heard a rumor that someone was upset that I didn't attend. I don't know who that was, and that's not important. But if I was one of the ones that someone had the impression that I had committed to buying tickets,
You were not on my.
let me know and I will take care of that. But I had no intentions of going because my students plan, schedule, coordinate, and then we have to submit for approval to the school superintendent that we can actually do it at the school property on that date. And once it's done, we can't do that. And my full-time job is with those students. So it was, I wish I could have been there to the dinner. It sounded great, but I apologize I couldn't make it.
Well, I would just say, I appreciate how you handled it, and sending a note to the whole group, explaining where, I think everyone was very comfortable. That's why I didn't hear any feedback. I know I mentioned it at the podium that you and Mac were having to take care of that. So,
Yeah, and Matt couldn't, ended up getting stuck in Washington D.C. testifying before Congress.
Oh, really?
So it ended up being Mark Scott who actually came down from Charleston and did the keynote address for the students, and they had a great time.
So you did better, you got an old Marine instead of an old,
I got an old Marine.
boot soldier.
Last old business item is communications. I've been talking about that the last couple of months, and we'll continue to talk about it. We are making progress behind the scenes, I would say. Probably the biggest update I would share with this group is Mr. Thomas Perkins and I have had some conversation. He's more than willing to help the club and more than willing to project our needs through a variety of formats. What I would ask everybody to do, if you're on Facebook or you're on social media, Greenbrier Journal, is that right? Greenbrier Journal is his page. Did a fantastic montage on the dinner. He also came back and put a video out there on it. I know several of us have liked that and our friends on it, but please support Greenbrier Journal. Let's talk about new business just for a second. To enter into the record a letter that was prepared several weeks ago before we applied. Reiterate some ground rules. There's really nothing to it. But I think it's important that you all hear what they have to say. These are the people that approved our application, and I'll truncate some of it so it's kind of a little bit lengthy. You are receiving communication because your group is politically affiliated and currently using Old Stone's facility for your gatherings. I'll skip that. Our mission as it relates to the building uses to offer our facilities to community groups as an extension of gracious hospitality and inclusion. We hope that this communication can help prevent any potential future misunderstandings of our expectations and values. Regarding political groups, we understand that while the vast majority of group activity is intended for the building up of the community, we also recognize that politics can be interpreted as possibly divisive and conflictive. It is advised that any events or speakers that might be considered divisive should be held outside of these facilities, and at no point this building can be used to host campaign rallies or fundraising events. Please remember that the building use agreement is held at discretion of Old Stone, blah, blah, blah. Old Stone hosts many groups on various sides of the political spectrum, and our expectations remain the same for all. Please be sure to remind all group members, guests, and speakers, which you're being reminded at this point, we should have group activity and discourse consistent with the values of the congregation. We're thankful to be able to offer such a space to community groups here in Lewisburg, and thank you for your contribution to these goals of hospitality, welcome, and inclusion. I was very comfortable with that because I feel this group models all those things. And so just wanted you to know where they stand. There are other people that meet in this space, and so it wasn't directed at us, it was directed at more of a broad audience. But I'll include that in the minutes.
So is this a space we're going to be using for long-term?
Yep.
Okay, so, are we doing anything to contribute?
Well, so that's an excellent way to segue. So now you know the rules. Everything we do here is above board. I have no concerns about that. I have no concerns about Jeff coming in and sitting with us. But Allie is perfectly correct. In years gone by, we have traditionally given $30 to the Greenbrier Sheriff, as the letter says, and my application said, this meeting is open to the public, so anybody can do it. And we put it to paper, and we do all those things, and we feature it as an education forum, so we can bring in people like Vince Dees or Todd Longenacre or other candidates or other elected officials to talk about things on their mind or what's going on. So it is an open forum. It's not, why don't we have Faye do it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Faye, do you want to make a motion?
Make a motion to, make a donation to the church,
And what amount would you be interested in?
$30.
$30. Anyway, all in favor, please say aye. And thank you for that. So at long last, I will stop talking, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome our State Senator Vince Dees to the floor. Welcome, Senator.
On Thursday nights, it just lands this way. Nicholas County has a meeting the same way, and I've talked to Mr. President here about that. I'll probably rotate. I'll come here one meeting and then go to Nicholas County the next meeting to kind of keep up with both counties, because I am responsible for all 5 counties. But I really do support what you're doing here. Okay, I'll put that out. I really do. I think you have good leadership, and so I want you to know that. And so I am honored to be here tonight, and I want to talk to you about a few things about the session, and then really just take your questions, because I think you'll have some excellent questions for me, and kind of give you an update on what all we did. And I'm sure Delegate Longacre probably covered a lot of this stuff, so that's why I think the questions would be very, very helpful. We dealt with 2,317 bills in 60 days. Okay, so that's you can imagine that's a lot of paperwork. Okay, that's a lot of information in a short amount of time. And through those 2,317 bills, ultimately 333 were passed. And 130 of those were the Senate bills, and 203 were the House bills. And of course, we did make some historic legislation this past session, mainly dealing with the tax cuts. That's on everybody's mind, and should be, because we needed to make some appropriate tax cuts. And I believe that the House and the Senate and the governor really got that right. Not only did we make historic personal income tax cuts, but we also made some personal property tax cuts, which dealt with motor vehicle personal property tax. You get that rebated back. And then there's one thing, and this was one of those things I would think that we'd all want to know about, but it's not mentioned a whole lot. Part of the tax cut was also for our veterans. There was a part of that bill is if a veteran is 90% or more disabled, it's called the Homestead Act. They don't have to pay property tax on their property, their home. And I think that's a great thing, for our veterans. That way, those that have been disabled, served their country and been disabled, they deserve a cut there. So we that's part of that as well. And then another aspect of the bill, there's four legs to it. Is the final leg is it's not sales tax, but it's actually a property tax cut for small businesses with $1 million or less. Some people will call them mom and pop businesses, not the box stores or anything like that. It's businesses with $1 million or less revenue. They received a 50% property tax cut. So during inventory time, they don't have to sell off or liquidate a bunch of their inventory in July. And it really does help those businesses quite a bit. So comprehensively, add all four of these up, it's a $770 million tax cut. It's pretty impressive. It's historic, actually. And the great thing, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot, the great thing about the tax cuts as well, especially personal property tax cut, is it has triggers to continue that are in place that will automatically, we don't have to touch it anymore, but as our economy grows, the personal property tax, personal income tax will be reduced that much more for us. So that's, and that will happen. That will happen. It's in legislation. It's done, and I'm going to give you some figures about the economy, which I think everybody needs to know. Our federal government has a lot of issues that are going on. We know that. That's why these elections are so important. Very, very important. Next year is incredibly important for us to make strides in our federal government. in the election process. Because I can only imagine how West Virginia would grow, continue to grow, if we didn't have this inflation that we're all dealing with, and you know, that was really started at the federal level. We've made some really serious progress in a lot of ways. Now, before we, and I'll come back to the economy here in just a few minutes. The Senate, it starts at 7:30 every morning. We meet in caucus. There's 31 of the 34 that are Republicans. And so we meet in caucus. The first thing we do is pray. And I think you need to know that. I think it's important for you to know that. I think that it shows that, you know, the Republican caucus there realizes that there's a higher authority than the state Senate. And that we give homage to that, and we honor that. We pray about our day and everything, and then we move on into business. And we can discuss a lot of things. Since we are such a smaller body, we can discuss what's on the agenda for the day. As far as the bills that are coming up in committees, the bills that are coming up on first reading, second reading, third reading, and that allows us a good opportunity, the 31 of us, to bring up questions. I mean, you know, bring up questions and debate stuff out and argue stuff out, for that matter, discuss things. So what that does, that allows the Senate to be maybe a little bit more nimble than the House, if that makes sense, because we go into our committee meetings, which, since there are a few of us, I mean, we have several committees, okay? I'm on education, health, judiciary, natural resources, agriculture. I have several committees that I'm on, okay? But we know going into those committees what the topics are coming up and really ultimately you know that you're gonna have a lot of witnesses there to listen to and ask questions of, and we do that, and we deliberate those things in committee form, you know, that are completely 100% public. And you can watch it online. I encourage you to watch it online. I think it's an interesting process. And then, so we move things out of committee, you know, not all the time. Some things get voted down in committee, or sometimes, you know, if the chairman of the committee has a lot of authority, it's up to him. If he wants to bring it up, he can bring it up. Now, if you know, if there's some issue that he doesn't want to bring in front of the Judiciary Committee, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee doesn't have to bring it up, okay? But there's always discussions about that, if there's an issue that is not presented. But overall, the majority of the big items, again, have been presented and discussed and voted on. My counterpart, Senator Jack David Woodrum, is on finance, and the remainder of the committees that I'm not on, he is on. So I think it's really, really important for you all to know, between the two of us, we are on every committee that the Senate has, okay? I'm on half of them, and then Jack David Woodrum is on the other half. And so, and we communicate really well. My office is literally just right down the hall from his, and so we communicate really well. If there's an issue that may be in finance, as far as a bill that you may be interested in finance, you're more than welcome, you know, to call Senator Woodrum. But you're also more than welcome to call me, and I can get the details real quick for you on that. Works really well. So that's ultimately, you know, the bills have to be read 3 times in the Senate, third time it's passed, and then it's sent over to the House. And then it goes through the same process over on the House side. And of course now, and I'm sure Delegate Longacre noted this, that there are a lot more debates on the floor of the House, because oftentimes, actually, it's the first time the delegates have an opportunity to even hear what the bill is, okay? So there's a lot more debates on the floor of the House than what there is on the Senate floor. And so, you know, it goes through the same process on the House, which I'm sure Delegate Longacre explain to you. And then, you know, if we get to a position, if it's voted out of both, then of course it goes to the governor and is signed from there. Did everybody get everything they wanted? No, absolutely not. That's not the way government is set up, and I'm thankful that's the way it works. But everybody got something. They really did. Everybody got something. I can tell you, I mean, you know, I know Delegate Longacre was on my side advocating for a bill of his, and it ultimately passed and was signed by the governor. And so, you know, everybody got something, and ultimately we hope and we pray that we honored your votes for us and represented you really well. We always have communications, and just because the session is over, do not think that we're not working, because we have interim sessions as well. You know, we meet every month, and in some shape or form or fashion, depends on what committees you're on. But you should meet in some shape or form or fashion every month, and normally 2 to 3 day meetings. And you know, we continue to discuss bills that may have died, you know, that were really good bills that for some reason, maybe time constraints or other issues, maybe didn't get through. We debate those out, and those the interim committee meetings are a combination of the Senate and the House, so that you actually get quite a bit done in 2 or 3 days, because you have both sides of the Capitol are there working on these bills. And I've been blessed. I'm the chairperson of the Fire and EMS committee, which was a big issue actually the last night of the session. If you'd have seen that, we had a bill that absolutely the Senate and the House agreed upon. It just, there was a little more of a clerical issue than anything else that was wrong with it. The title did not match the bill quite, and it has to be right. I mean, you know, that's more of a clerical issue. Kind of died on the vine in the last half an hour of the session. We've actually got it, we fixed it and answered any other questions dealing with that bill in the April session of interims. And really we're going to vote, our committee's going to vote on that and recommend its passage to the Speaker and the President this upcoming week. We go back to interims this Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So things are working. We can introduce bills right now. If you have an idea for a bill, please share it with your senator or your delegates, and say, hey, you know, I really think this is a good idea. And we can draft it now. We have bill drafting at the Capitol, stays open year round, and so we can draft a bill today, for that matter, that you may suggest it. So I kind of given you a big overview. You know, I'm sure there's probably questions that you have about specific issues. One thing that and I'm going to hand this so you can you know, hand it around here. I do want to show you how strong our state government economy, how our economy is doing. And this allows us to do a lot of things. There's certain things that we did during this session that fostered business in certain avenues. But what I'm going to hand around, and this is the Senate Committee on Finance, this is General Revenue Collections. This is through April. This just finished up in April. The year-to-date estimate, okay, year-to-date estimate for through April was $3,800,000,000 and a little bit more than that, almost $3.9 billion. Okay, what we have collected. Okay, now this is important. What has been collected and what will help us to ultimately cut back on income tax here soon. What we have collected so far this year, remember, it's 3.9 was the estimate. We have collected $5.4 billion. $5.4 billion. Our economy is busting at its seams as far as the state economy goes. Now that's great for a lot of different things. You know, we can't control the national economy. We can't, you know, but it does foster business wanting to be in West Virginia. So I'll let you take it. You're more welcome to thumb through this. This kind of breaks it down more than that. You're more welcome to thumb through this. Just, and for that matter, I'll leave this with, Mr. President, and he can make it part of the records, or Secretary, however you want. What kind of questions do you have? I know we're on a limited time. Sure, absolutely.
Same people all the time.
Sure, absolutely. So,
I'm a dollars and cents person.
sure.
Explain to me what and how the state is gonna handle years down the road if certain taxes are limited. How is the state or the counties gonna make up for those dollars and cents that are missing from registrations or, lowering taxes? How is it gonna work?
Right, no, that's a great question. And also, I talked about the triggers of letting it grow. It fluctuates with the economy, okay? And really, the bill, we spent a lot of time on drafting this legislation. And what it will do now, if, say, the economy slows down, okay? That, it will not foster any more tax cuts, okay? Let me give you an example, because I think what happened, let me give you a state example. Kansas, if you look at Kansas State, they went in and cut personal income tax, I think it was like 40%, because their economy was doing really good, okay? Well, what happened, their economy slowed down, because you'll see on this literature here, severance tax is always important in West Virginia, but severance tax fluctuates because it fluctuates with gas and coal, it fluctates with that. And so Kansas, what happened to Kansas is after about 4 or 5 years, 6 years, they had to start increasing taxes. That's the last thing that we wanted to do in West Virginia. So what we did, and the Senate did a physical study. You're supposed to have a projection out to 6 years, okay? Just like any other dollars and cents, you're supposed to project out how the economy is going to be in 6 years. And so we looked at that, and that's how come our bill, the Senate version of the tax cut bill, was so conservative. I mean, it really was conservative, and that's how come you'll see that's why we didn't jump on the governor and I think the House both wanted a 30% personal income tax cut and then a 10-10 to get to 50%. We weren't comfortable with that. We wanted to spread it around and have a lower personal income tax cut. And we also wanted to spread the love around, I guess would be the best way to put it. Some people, a personal income tax cut will not benefit a whole lot, or they won't touch it, okay? But the vehicle personal property tax rebate will, that'll help go back into their pockets a little bit more. And it will not affect the counties. The rebate does not affect the counties because the counties are already collecting, and they've already collected the money from you and I. They live off of it. The state is who does the rebate. It doesn't even touch the county budget at all. So the rebate comes from the state. Now, all that being said, our tax cuts were really, really conservative. And that's why you will see that there's triggers in place that will increase it if the projections are looking really good 6 years out, not just today. 6 years from now, if the projections are really good, then we can modify and cut personal income tax again. Now, if the projections are looking really bad for whatever reason, then that tax cut does not go into play, and we'll be able to survive on where we're at. Okay.
But is the state gonna be robbing Paul to pay Peter at some point?
No.
If that happens?
No, because you stabilize where you're at. You see, you're stable where we're at right now. We're going to continue. the state economy always grows, always, and you can, even during lean years, state economy always grows roughly right around 3%, okay? I mean, it's natural. That's how come whenever the governor in 2016, okay, whenever the governor and it came in and said, hey, we're going to keep a flat budget, okay, that was hard. I mean, a lot of things that was hard to do because that never, for one thing, never been done before. And the Senate and the House got in behind and agreed to do that with the governor, keep a flat budget, and our budget remains flat to this day. What that flat budget does, it allows for that natural growth to feed on itself. It really snowballs. That 3% adds over a period of time. That's why we have such a big surplus. That's why we went from $500 million in the hole in 2016, 2015. $500 million in the hole. Now we're way over. I mean, you have $1 billion surpluses. Is because we maintain a flat budget, and we've made some really been open. Some people will call open for business. Absolutely, we are open for business, and I wish, and I'm under some non-disclosure agreements, I can't go into particulars, but there are businesses, and now post-COVID especially, that want to stay and know about the supply chain issues. Nobody, and really a lot of big companies do not want to send anything overseas. They want to build it in America, build it here and sell it here. And West Virginia has absolutely had a lot of multi-billion dollar companies that are wanting to do business here. And so you'll see now if those businesses continue to develop, and you can see that in our economy, our state economy, from the Eastern Panhandle up north, you can just drive around the state. The Eastern Panhandle up north, and now the Point Pleasant with Nucor and Berkshire Hathaway and Ravenswood is really developed. And now what that does, what that bumps up is your personal, your sales tax, okay? And so we're making more money on the sales tax. We're eliminating the income tax, but we're making more money on the sales tax. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah, and so it's really feeding on itself, and it really great. People a lot smarter than Vince Deeds have really studied this out, and they presented it in a way that it really got our consensus. And I mean, we have really got a lot of intelligent people that have studied this out, and I tell you, it's going to work. It really will work. Because our state is in such a unique opportunity. Right.
In your personal opinion, do you think a flat budget works for West Virginia?
Yeah, I like how it is, how it fosters that, especially now that we have these tax cuts in place, these triggers for our income tax, personal income tax, and companies like the predictability. They like the predictability and coming to West Virginia and knowing that we're not going to sell our soul, okay, for a business to come in here, but we have to be open for business too. We have to encourage them to come here. But I mean, now I've been in a lot of meetings, and I know I'm coming.
Sorry.
But these are all good questions, and they really are.
Curious.
Yeah, and a great question. But with that being said, companies from around the world are meeting with the Senate leadership and the House leadership for this. Frank or Doug, it doesn't matter to me, whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. I've been looking into education.
Sure.
Since you're on the education committee.
Yes.
In math, one high school was less than 20% proficient, the other one was less than 25%.
Sure.
And during the COVID, they shut down the schools because the teachers went on strike.
Right.
We need to find a pool of substitute teachers. I can teach 5th grade math, no problem.
Right.
Doug can teach politics, whatever he needs now.
Right.
We may have some trouble with chemistry or physics or some of that, but we can.
Don't bet on that.
But anyway, I can't understand why we shut down.
Right.
I can't understand the wording in the 5th grade math book. I flunked it.
Right.
And something needs to be done to get the education into reality.
Right.
And I'd like to come talk to you sometime, so I don't have to bore everybody here
Right.
with math.
No, I'd appreciate it if you would, because, yeah, I am on the education committee, and I'm actually going in June. There's a southeastern state legislative conference about education, essentially about what you're talking about. Because, you know, education, you know, and sometimes, you know, public education is very difficult to get our young people, especially math, it seems like, you know, and literacy. Now, we did have and one thing that did pass that will help with literacy. Okay, there's a study, and it's a national study that shows this. If by 3rd grade, if a child can't read by 3rd grade, they're 75% more likely to live in poverty and be a criminal ultimately. And so we did pass the K through 3 bill to start out with, and it came out of the Senate. Now it did not make it out of the House, which is fine. It probably needed tweaks some more, and I defer to the Education Committee over on the House side to do that. But it's important that we have literacy rates at a high level by 3rd grade. Math rates at the 5th grade level should be better than what they are. Absolutely. 20 to 25% is not acceptable at all. It's one thing that we're running into. We would absolutely, if y'all would get your teaching certificate, we'd love for all of you to come and teach.
You don't
Okay?
get a teacher's certificate. If you have 5th grade math,
Right.
have the test there for people who would like to volunteer to help
Right.
out.
Sure.
Take the test, and if they pass the test, they're qualified.
Right. Kind of like taking homeschool teachers and putting them in the schools, really. Yeah,
It's like driving. You have to drive a car
Yeah,
and show you park and go around the corner and wave your hand.
sure. Absolutely. No, that's a good point.
Go to Doug.
Yeah, I'm really, talk to me later, Frank. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Well, the one I'm concerned about is the legislature seems to show no concern about the prison system. We've got more than 300 prisoners than we have facilities to house them with.
Right.
And the average wage in West Virginia is about $43,000.
Right.
The median wage is about $73,000.
Right.
But the starting state trooper or a corrections officer is $33,000, and there was a bill to raise them by $10,000.
Right.
But everybody's in the state education system got an across the board raise. All the state employees got across the board raises. And I think the state police all got across the board raises. What happened to that bill that it didn't pass? And then we spent $17 million on activating National Guard to replace those corrections officers with.
Yeah,
Can I add to that, which are bringing contraband in, passing notes for inmates. I worked in the prison system for 15 years.
Right.
It is 1 CO to 75, 100 inmates.
Right.
So imagine someone like me taking on 75 maximum security inmates. And the National Guard, if you look and do your research, because I'm still good friends up there and I've talked to all the investigators, the National Guard has been more of a headache than a help.
right, I know.
Sorry.
And no, that's a really good question. I tell you what, there was, it was one of those things, you know, keep in mind that a lot of stuff going on in 60 days, okay? That is a priority, and I tell you how big of a priority it is. Do not be surprised, and I can't, you know, I'm not the governor, I'm not the Speaker of the House, I'm not the President of the Senate, but I do know that there is a lot of talk about just coming back for 3 or 4 days in a special session just to deal with this problem. And I think you may see that in August, okay? The reason that it should have been, there's a lot of Band-Aid approaches to it that were discussed at length during session, but it had just been a Band-Aid. and we couldn't really get a consensus at that time to how ultimately to fix it. And so ultimately, the short answer is this. That's how come the fire and EMS bill is being worked on. We've got certain bills that are top priorities that absolutely deserve a special session. The corrections, Department of Corrections is going to be a driver to have a special session, probably 3 or 4 days. And I would imagine to see that in August. That's the way it sounds right now. Now, of course, Vince can't make that decision. I can just tell you what I've been told. I know the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and the Governor have been talking about this, doing this, because it is broken. Of course, I know, I deal with DOC, I deal with the regional jail system every day at work, in my regular work at the prosecutor's office. They're incredibly short-staffed, underpaid. And with that, you get what you pay for, okay? We shouldn't ask a corrections officer that is literally locked up with these individuals to be getting paid $33,000 a year.
16 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're always working overtime, because there's nobody else to relieve them, relieve their shift. So that is a critical need for our state, and I think we'll get there. We also wanted to make sure that the public understood that our economy is doing really well, and so if we're putting just specifically money into one section of our society, our government, DOC, that we can afford to do that too. So there's some deliberation. Everybody thought, hey, come on, guys, let's go ahead and spend all this money right now on this. We wanted to kind of settle in as far as the tax cuts and the economy, and to show the public, the general public, that our economy is still doing well. And that's why it's important that you see this literature and follow our economy, so we can, whenever we go in there and say, hey, we want $10,000 a piece for a DOC employee, that allows our public, the citizens to understand that a little bit better. Understand that we can afford to do that as well. So that's kind of the process, the thought process right now. I can't guarantee it, but I'd be really surprised if we don't have a session in August. Yeah.
You mentioned that the government was operating on a flat budget.
Right.
How are they giving raises? Why are they cutting to give the raises? If you give a 10% raise, for example, where are you getting the money?
Well, you see the money, the revenue itself, the revenue collections is growing, and you'll see that on this.
I know that, but if it's flat, means a solid dollar amount, it's not increasing, the way I understand it.
Yeah. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Flat means flat.
Yeah, flat means flat. Yeah, that is, I mean, you have to see where to allocate the money, ultimately. The revenue is, and that's why you'll see like DOC, if we'd have taken, and it'd been millions of dollars to support DOC, it would have offset that flat budget, okay? It really would have. And now with the economy growing the way that it is, it continues to grow. Surplus continues to grow. We can take that instead of what's called, and the economists can talk a lot better about this than what Vince can. But you don't want to do when you talk about flat budget, you're talking about base building, okay? The base. This is what absolutely costs the government to operate on. And
I've done budget for 20 years.
right. And that base. You don't want to build too much on that base until you can actually afford it long term. So that's the balance that they're working on, and you'll see that will allow us to do certain things, but you're essentially, you call it a flat budget, but you're absolutely building a little bit into the
So
base.
you're increasing it percentage-wise to cover the expenses, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I'm a greenhorn with this, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
It's pretty complex.
But one thing I picked up on is that, the local banks, the community banks.
Sure.
That are possibly in jeopardy of having to undergird the larger banks that are failing.
Right.
And so how is that going to affect, how badly is it going to affect? Apparently it's going to be something.
As far as just the local bank system, as far as the smaller banks, being able to, I'm not sure I understood your question. I want to make sure I give you the best answer.
Well, the local banks have been doing well.
Right.
But now with the large banks that have said we have not been running this bank correctly.
Right.
And, we need to have some undergirding, and apparently the president has said, well, we're going to take money out of the smaller banks and buy, the banks that are failing.
Right, and that's more of a federal government, issue. I mean, it's gonna affect all of us, absolutely. The best thing you can do is vote a Republican president back in next year, is honestly. I mean, it really is. We have a lot of issues like that on the national level that does inhibit and slow down incredibly and affects all of us. You think because somebody's in Washington D.C., it doesn't affect us, and even with our outstanding state economy, it still does affect us here. Interest rates are going up right now, inflation's going up, and the reason interest rates are going up is because inflation is, on the national level, the Democrats have really created their own problems, and now we're all paying for it. And so it's super important. The short answer is this. I think overall, West Virginia is a good place to stay and to live because our cost of living is lower. And so we have more money in our pocket. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do is put more money in everybody's pocket. Now, on the state level, however, there will be some federal mandates that will happen that will affect some of our local banks.
Sure.
And that the best way and this is critically important. I want to leave you with this. It is critical. They're critical that we make a really wise choice on the next president of the United States.
Absolutely.
And for that matter, in the Senate race. Because we need to take over the House. We've already taken over the House on the federal level. We need to take over the Senate and then hopefully set up the next Republican president for a really, to where they can function appropriately. But that's a great question. Federal mandates really affect us. And I would hate to think that if we were $500 million in debt like we were in 2015, we'd all be hurting really, really bad in West Virginia if we would still be carrying that debt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Really good question. Anything else?
I think we're good. We appreciate Senator Deeds for coming by. Great. All right, well, let's wrap up and keep it moving. Items for the good of the party. Any open questions or issues or anything we need to address or take a note on to come back to? We want to make that opportunity available to people during the meeting. All righty. Dates to remember. So, you've heard from Senator Deeds, you've heard from Delegate Longenacre, we've looked in the rearview mirror about our session that just completed a couple of months ago. From now on, the club will be looking forward. So, we're very excited. Next month, on June 1st, right here, same bat channel, same bat station, we'll be back here in this space. We're going to have J.B. McCuskey back with us in Greenbrier County. He is our state auditor. And he is also a gubernatorial candidate, so he's going to come in and talk to us about his plank and what he stands for and those kind of things. Our intention is to bring a candidate in every month until the primary season. So we look forward to having all those folks in that and not necessarily all gubernatorial candidates, but candidates for any role. So we've already invited most of the folks that were here Saturday. We've asked them to come back down, and we're looking for some dates for them. And some people that weren't here on Saturday, we're going to have them in. So every month from here on out, we should bring in some future-looking candidates, and we're excited to bring them to Greenbrier County. With that, let's talk about volunteer opportunities for a minute. I highlighted the state fair coordinator because one, we don't have a state fair coordinator this year, and two, it is becoming a critical role that we need to fill. We are about 3 months out from the fair. I would tell you that most of you have worked the fair. It is a time-consuming activity to prepare and plan and think through all those things, and so being 3 months out, not having anybody makes me a little nervous. So I would ask you all to think through that, think of your schedules, your calendars, your time, and if you can spare some time now to help us with that, we'd appreciate that. Should I not get a volunteer, then I will be drafting somebody, and so you may get a call. But I would ask you all to consider that and think about the fair. I would just tell you it takes a little bit of effort. If we start now, it won't be nearly as burdensome as it normally can be as we get into August, so be thinking about that. We're also continuing to look for a membership chair. That was a discussion we had a couple months ago. I don't think that's a bad idea. If you look at the audience tonight, we have an opportunity with membership and attendance, and so if we can have somebody that could rally around that point, that would be great. It has been brought to my attention that the dinner committee, which is a repeat audience every time, is getting a little tired of being on the dinner committee. So if you are interested in, that's the feedback I got, if you're interested in helping the dinner committee in December, please let one of us know, and we'll be happy to assign you that spot. Now, that's a lot more fun than, frankly, the fair. So the dinner committee is a lot of good things going on there, and so that's something to participate. But again, in seriousness, the dinner committee did a fantastic job last Saturday. The challenge is the same people that were there for Christmas and the year before and the year before and the year before. So.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right. Okay. Any other thoughts for the good of the club? With that, I would just close by saying, as I already mentioned, attendance was a little soft tonight. I'm a little disappointed with that. So if you know club members, interested people that are conservative values, remind them that the club meets every first Thursday of the month. We'll be here at Old Stone for the foreseeable future. Ask them to come back in, talk to them about our speaker series, because again, you don't get conversations with Senator Deeds on the sidewalk. If you want to hear what's on his mind and what he's working on, come to the meeting. We're going to get J.B. McCuskey in. He's been to Greenbrier County a couple times. He's coming back, but we'll have people you haven't met before coming in to see. It's a great opportunity to meet people in an intimate setting and talk to them about what's on their mind and what's on your mind. So spread that gospel if you don't mind. The last thing I would leave you with is, at the end of the month, it is Memorial Day, and we ask everybody to remember our fallen heroes out there. So Monday the 29th is a day to remember our fallen. So please keep those folks and their families in your thoughts. So.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Amen. All right, I'll declare the meeting over, and thank you all for coming. Please travel home safely, and thank you all for your attendance.